Unless you're living with no phone signal, no cable, and living with no people, you must have heard that the World Cup is fastly approaching in Qatar. With this brings a lot of excitement for every nation involved, and especially the players who get to represent their country for the millions watching. However, due to the World Cup being held for the first time in the months of November to December, the timing has already impacted participating teams with many injuries. What's up guys, it's Let's Talk Football here, and today we look at the players that will miss the 2022 World Cup for their respective nations and what impact that will have on their nation. Due to intense summer heat in the host nation Qatar, the World Cup had to be moved from the usual scheduling of the June-July window. While the scheduling change will make for better playing conditions for the players, it also posed a challenge for a number of squads. Since the World Cup tournament falls smack in the middle of the European club season, rather than during the summer when it is typically held, it means any players injured in the weeks leading up to the World Cup are in danger of missing the tournament. In the past, these players have had several weeks to recover prior to the tournament's kickoff. But this time around, there is a precious time limit between the break from club play November 14th and the start of the World Cup on Sunday, November 20th. With that being said, as you can imagine, many players are definitely going to get injured during the club season, and that is going to impact their participation possibilities for their respective nations. And with that being said, let's go through some of the biggest injuries going into this World Cup for players who will not be able to participate. And with that, we're starting off with a big nation and a big player in Paulo Dybala. He suffered a torn hamstring on October 9th while taking and scoring a penalty. Looked initially unlikely he would be available for the World Cup, but recent reports have indicated he could make a recovery in time. However, it is unlikely. Another attacker who is in doubt for Argentina is also Angel Di Maria, who has already announced that the 2022 World Cup will be his final World Cup. Di Maria has struggled with a number of injuries this season, going down in early October with a quad injury, but he has returned to training and he should be available. But finally, another one that is going to impact Argentina in the midfield is Giovanni Lo Celso. He suffered a torn quad on October 30th, and parent club Tottenham want him to undergo surgery, but the player may opt out to play through the injury at the World Cup. His status is uncertain, but his involvement is looking unlikely. Already with those three injuries, Argentinian fans are going to feel a little bit less optimistic with some of their biggest hitters missing.
Big man thing, yeah? It's not looking good, bruv. It's not looking good.
Next up is Belgium, and their biggest hitter in Romelu Lukaku is looking like a doubt. It's been an injury-plagued season for Lukaku, who returned from a hamstring injury for one match only to go down with a quad injury on October 29th. He will miss the rest of Inter's club matches before the break, and his chances of being fit for the World Cup are truly up in the air. Another fellow Belgium is also up in the air, being Thomas Meunier, who suffered a fractured cheekbone on October 20th. However, his chances are looking a little more hopeful than Lukaku according to reports. Next up on the list is Brazil, and their biggest injury scare is most likely Richarlison. He has been out with a calf injury since October 15th and has yet to return for Spurs. However, in optimistic news, it seems he was added to the list for the final squad to get on the plane to Qatar. And with the amount of Brazilian attackers waiting to get a spot in this Brazilian national team, I don't think Richarlison will be too much of a miss. However, someone who will be a miss is an England international by the name of Reece James. One of the most devastating injuries for any team at the World Cup involves England's fullback Reece James, who was in fantastic form with Chelsea before he suffered a knee injury against Wolves on October 8th. There was some debate that he may be still included in Gareth Southgate's squad, but it was confirmed on November 9th that he will not make the tournament. Of course, there are still fullbacks like Kyle Walker, Trent Alexander-Arnold, and Kieran Trippier who are all going to Qatar. However, having Reece James there in this Gareth Southgate system would have suited England perfectly, and unfortunately they are going to be missing one of their key players on that right hand side. However, England's injury crisis is nothing compared to France's, beginning with N'Golo Kanté.
Thank you.
The Chelsea midfielder has been injury prone his whole career, and the same applied early in this Premier League season as he succumbed to a hamstring issue. He's been out since mid-August and was ruled out of the World Cup a number of weeks before the tournament, alongside fellow French midfielder Paul Pogba.
What's happening, Pogba? I just want to get on and say best of luck in the World Cup final tomorrow, my brother.
A knee injury in preseason kept Pogba out of action for Juventus all season, and while it was thought he could recover in time for the World Cup, he suffered a thigh injury during his recovery, ruling him out of the World Cup. It's a brutal blow for France, who will be missing both of their starring midfielders in Qatar. And finally, one more injury that will impact this France squad, although they already have Hugo Lloris, is Mike Maignan.
What I've got is I've got a nice large nan. My nan's dead. So that don't matter?
Outside of Pogba and Conte, Maignan is the biggest miss for France due to the calf injury that had him out of action since October 1st. He was ruled out of club action through the new year by AC Milan head coach Stefano Pioli. Maignan had a breakout season in 2021-22 and was a big reason for the Rossoneri's win of the Serie A title. Of course, Hugo Lloris is most comfortable between the French sticks. It would have been interesting what Didier Deschamps would have done if he had competition like that at the goalkeeper spot, but I guess we'll never know. Yet another heartbreaking injury story comes from another nation in Germany, and it comes from star forward Timo Werner, who is recovering his form after moving to RB Leipzig this past summer. However, unfortunately for him, he limped off in the 19th minute of Leipzig's Champions League win over Shakhtar Donetsk on November 2nd and was ruled out for the World Cup with foot injury. And yet again, one person who seems to always get injured before big international tournaments, and it seems like he's cursed at this point, is Marco Reus, who went down this past week with an injury that Dortmund say that will rule him out of the World Cup. Another heartbreaking year for Marco Reus fans and German fans who were waiting to see one of their star players play in an international tournament finally. And the final injury of this video that I was speaking of is the Portuguese Diogo Jota. The Liverpool forward returned from a hamstring injury in early October and looked bright, but cruelly suffered a calf injury just weeks later and will be out of the World Cup, thinning the strike options for Portugal behind Cristiano Ronaldo. Although it is a big blow for Portugal, they still have the likes of Rafael Leao and Joao Felix waiting to get their chances in this Portuguese national side. Of course, I didn't mention every nation and every injury going into this World Cup, otherwise we would be here for hours. However, just looking at these few players from these top nations and how much they're going to be impacted by missing some of their star players does take away from some of the World Cup magic that we have been used to seeing over the past few years. Nonetheless, this will be a very entertaining tournament for the masses, and I have a feeling it's going to be one that we're going to remember for a long time, especially because it was played in the winter time. But with all that being said, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and we'll see you guys in the next one.